featured artist under the NOMA remodeling. I was thrilled when Lisa had asked me. So I want to thank Lisa and David and their team, Mel and Isaiah floating around here, and Diane. They've all been so helpful and grateful. This collection came to be basically through the pandemic. It's a negative word. I was trying to find positives in the negative, and I couldn't really go anywhere. My partner says, stick around, there's nothing that you need to do, just create. So I started with the smaller series, and they basically came to life after couch sessions, because Olivia had asked me to do a couch sessions in June of 2019, and from that motivated the one-liners, and I started doing the smaller ones on my lap and then taking them into the studio and coloring them. And I start all of them with a marker and a black line. Hey, bud.
Hey, bud.
And then I start adding color, and I usually start yellow to the warms to the hots, or yellow to the greens to the cools. Sometimes they mix. There's a couple pieces where I clash my color palette. I was born and raised in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. There's going to be a test later. 27 miles northwest of Pittsburgh. I went to school in Indiana, which was 2.5 hours due southwest, I believe, near Johnstown. Did my undergraduate there. Once I graduated with a degree in painting and design, back in the 70s, there weren't many jobs. You had to either go the advertising route, if you got your teaching degree, teach, but nobody was looking for artists, and nobody was as ballsy as our generation is today to say, damn it, I'm going to do my art. So I took a job with a department store, and I started through the ranks, product development, merchandising, assortments, working with the buyers, coordinating it on the floor, working with planograms, which was just starting to get hot back in the 70s. Climbed all the way to where I became the home fashion director for Burdines in Miami, Florida. And I was there for 12 years. Then I took a position, because at that point there were rumors of Macy's and all these stores merging. I took a package and I ended up in Chicago, where I met Max, and that was in 1993. And here we are. We ended up getting a house here, and I've been painting and doing my stuff ever since. I know a lot of you. I know all of you, so I guess I'll get started. These start with one line. And even the ones that are on 4 multiple panels or 3 panels, I stop and then I connect. And if I have to go to the bathroom or get a glass of wine or something, I stop and I leave the pen right there. So I pretty much know how it's going to go. Bear with me. I can't talk and do this at the same time, much like a musician. And then what I'll do is go in and fill in the negative and positive space. And I think this is a form of neuroses. And keep it going. I feel like the guy with the fuzzy hair.
What's that?
Bill, Bob, John Ross, or whatever.
No. Do you ever have an idea of what you're going to do? Or?
Pretty much. I usually let it go. This, I'm going to make it pretty much relate to the landscape on the front. I don't usually do landscapes. But what I'll do... I'm sorry?
Your wire.
Oh, okay. I feel like Doris Day here. It'll be... I'll go in here, for example, even with the Sharpie, and I'll extend this down to give it more. But I have the basic linear line there. And this I'll do for hours. Let me continue with this going up. But yes, I do have a preconceived notion of where I want to go with it.
That mark you just made almost reads like a shadow of the tree.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And I use a mixture of flat acrylic and a thicker Liquitex, or a basic that I get from Dick Blick, who's become my good friend over the years. I usually do it to music, and I usually do it to something with a little bit of rhythm, like Chaka Khan or Steely Dan. Old hippie music. Sometimes they take a long time for me to linear go in there, but it takes longer for me to paint it. Because so many times I'll come up with a color direction, and then I do go through the basics of positive against negative, light against dark, linear against shadow. All of that pretty much comes into play when I do these. And if I want to get into this space, I have to go up and all the way around, because I'm anal retentive and I don't want to leave the page, the pencil. And that'll give it a where I can now create shadows. And then this will create pattern in the background, if there is a background. What I've started doing is showing a dot where I start, because sometimes people don't believe me that it's one line. So then, I really didn't want to play with pigment, but I could certainly get in a little bit. Am I tilted around? There it is. I don't know about a lot of you, but I love Sharpies. I go through hundreds of them, because then I could paint over them, or I could use them as part of the art, and they're legitimately accepted by arts councils and contests and all that stuff. Hi. Then what I'll do is I'll start going in, and this may stay or it may be covered over, but I'll just start creating positive and negative spaces. And I can already envision this blending down into blue, almost ombre. The biggest one I did is that red one back there. And that took me about 4 weeks off and on. But then I don't know about a lot of you, but I get anal. You know, I obsess about it at night. I'll go back out there and I'll look at it and I'll turn it upside down and all that stuff we do. And I find with these, I could overlay them with the acrylic and almost make them like a glaze. They get a little bit more depth. And then what I'll do is I'll extend this. I want one that works better. There we go. And this is where I'll sit for hours, just extending the line or giving it more depth. I mean, like way hours. Some of the ones that look the easiest on the eye are the ones that probably take the longest amount of time.
They give me this like feeling of like old tattoos, you know?
Exactly. And also, I hate to say this, but paint by numbers. Because I apply it with that methodology of going back in and filling in an area. But lately I've been like splattering the canvas and getting more dimension in the backgrounds. And I think my favorite aspect of them is if I'm working, where's that thing at? If I'm working on sizes are like that, which were 11 by 11 square in this blue one, then I put the four together. Yeah, right behind you, Danuta. Those I will work on each individual unit, but knowing where the color goes and how to apply it to the next one. And they're all cradled and stapled from behind.
You know, David, I had seen the first one you did at a Zoom meeting that I had with Matt.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that?
Yeah, he told me somebody had mentioned, and he said your name. Yeah. They were all over the house.
And I was just so mesmerized by the one, and I see how far you've come since then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an evolution. I can see it in your work. It's like amazing.
This is the first time in my whole art career that I've stuck with one media. It's the first time I just didn't grab pencils and pens and markers. I stuck with the Sharpie and the acrylic, and that was it. It became a discipline. It became a neuroses. It became, he'd be working on projects and I'd track through to the den, like, line them up. What do you think? What do you think? And I can't work on one at a time because I'm an Aries and I'm crazy, and I need to work on the next one and see this evolution. And I've always been that way. I think this project taught me discipline, how to continue with a theory, a theme or a theory or a story. I could have painted really dismal, dark, depressing, and that's not where I wanted to go, not during all of this. So each one was a new enlightenment. Each one became bigger and better in my head Where can I take it? How far could I go? Do I want to go monochromatic? Do I want to go more colorful? Do I want to go with more of a white background? It became like keeping notes and being obsessed about it. Will I continue with this style? I guess, because I'm one to explore and try. You and I have a lot in common. I did a piece for the Venus show where I did a figure, but she doesn't have a face. It's just all this kind of stuff. So that was my every woman sidebar.
That really would have made a great horse.
You know, I sit on the board with MCA. Everybody, my husband, everybody asked me, are you going to do a horse? I was itching to do a horse. Sidebar on the horse. Out of all the horses, okay, there was 30 some at the first round, 20 some at the second round, 11. Mine's the only one missing.
I know, that is,
Isn't that a kick in the butt?
yes.
So I wanted to do Where in the World is Waldo, or, you know, kind of thing. Max even said, generate a fundraiser to pay money to help find horse fever, or Forest King. And then donate that money back to the organization. Personally, I think it's in a dorm room. I will put money on it that a frat from one of our neighboring cities, you want to be a frat boy, go get the horse. So that's where I think that guy is. But I think it brought me awareness of this community 11 years ago, because I've seen it go through stages of how we've grown and grown to where 11 years ago, could we have imagined a venue like this, let alone the brick, let alone the small galleries that are popping up. So I think a lot of good stuff has really, you know, come to be. Any other questions?
I think your horse got taken because it was the best one.
No, it's in a dorm somewhere. And even my horse sort of replicates the color palette and the design, although it was more linear. Again, I'm thinking I would love to see these turned into fabric. I think like yard goods would be pretty funky, like caftans and scarves. And I have a product development background, so I think of that. My thought process right now is taking plain blank canvas, and I want to stitch it together, almost like quilting it, with these images on it. But I want it to be like forms that come up. You know where I'm at? Sort of
One of my
octopusic essence, like from the ground up, but multiples of them. I think like multiples. I'm sorry.
One of my favorite pieces that I've ever seen of yours was at MCA, and it was probably about yay big, and it was embroidered. It was like a plant. Do you remember that?
I still have that in my studio. It was needlepoint. I was sick and I couldn't go out anywhere, so I just sat with fabric, and I thought, how the hell do you do this? And read up a little bit of it, but you know, needlepoint artists are really finicky. They're like jewelers. They know the stitches, and they know. So what I was doing was my own interpretation.
Yeah. I see a correlation between that and this.
Yeah, and a lot of my stuff is organic and tropical. I'll always stick a flower in something. However, when I did the reeds, the world paper, those didn't have any imagery in them whatsoever.
Those are awesome as well.
I just, you know, I will get a photograph I love of nature and I will paint it. That's as far as I go, and I just can't get outside my box, you know, and I look at what you do with the magazines, with the one-liner, and it's like,
Take your paper and go outside. Even if it's a dorky looking tree in your yard, paint that tree. Or rip off a branch and do an analytical study of how the wood tore away from the branch, and get into, because I remember your pumpkins, which I could have pulled right off of the canvas. They were very realistic super realism. And if you could do that, you could do all kinds of stuff.
Well, I've experimented with abstract, and it just, I can't get there.
Abstracts is it's a tough thing. To me, abstracts always seem to be linear. I don't know why, maybe it's because of Picasso. The only person I've really seen break away is Seth, who adds those rounded kind of images into it. But I usually associate abstract, I guess, with cubism, or that's in my head. But it is a different, we had to go through the process of drawing a chair, and then the next stage you distort it a little bit. Then you distort it a little bit more, and by the time you get to your fourth drawing, you sort of know maybe it's a chair because you've distorted it as far as you could go. I do remember those projects. Or how to take something like a figure of a face, and through 4 or 5 stages show it straight on, sad, happy. The same face, but giving with the facial, using tissue paper to create the different facial expressions. I think my biggest hang up, and he's heard this, you've all heard it, I don't think people draw enough. I don't think artists sketch enough, or always have that sketchbook with them. You'll see them at lunch and whipping out, like if we were in Paris right now, they'd whip out their book and start sketching. But I think a lot of people rely more on click, click, and let's walk away, rather than sitting and studying it and really understanding it, analyzing it. That's a key word for me, really analyzing your subject matter. And when I taught, if you could take and copy the Marlboro Man off that magazine, why can't you draw? He's sitting right in front of me. Why can't I draw him? They don't think, they need to be told to do it, rather than when you're an artist, it comes to you like obsession, I have to do this. And that's the learning curve. I think that's the process in school where they see something in you and they pull it out. Because I don't think you could get into art school if you don't have some drawing in your portfolio today. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say for the most part.
Because they need a starting point. Once they see you draw, this girl right here, I bet she could do jewelry, I think, and they sort of pull it out of you. I firmly believe this. You don't go to college to become an artist. You are an artist to go to college to learn different medium. Because you got it. You have it in you. It's coming out of your skin. But they all discipline you, like before we learned color, we had to draw. Then I think we went into pastels, and then some water-based. Now, I'm old. My school, they hated watercolor. They thought it was not a good media. Watercolor, in their opinion, 40 years ago, is strictly to do quick doodles to refer to as you're doing something bigger. And their opinion on this, to professors in particular, you never see watercolors the way they were intended in the museum. Rembrandts have all faded to brown, his little doodles. Monet and all those guys, theirs are just faint because it fades. It's a pigment that goes away rather quickly. So once you go through water-based paint, then they did us egg gouache. Did you have to do that? Egg gouache, tempera, acrylic, and then oil. Sometimes 2 courses. Oil was one and acrylic was the other. And they were doing this to screw with your head, like which one is he going to get into the most. I love oil painting. Oil painting doesn't like me. I'm too impatient. I am very too much impatient. When I see Mel's paintings, like that giant winged piece back there that takes hours, but the blending, and that's what oils do well. They really do give you that glow kind of blend. And I'm too spontaneous, so I have to, do my lap art. Anything else?
Well, I was just telling my husband this morning, I said, because I've been listening to another, during COVID, we really thought that I had all the time in the world to create. I did nothing with my art that whole time, and I'm just so disgusted. But I went to this online class that was free, but you know, the first one was about design and it was about value, and then the last one was color. It's like, I went to art school. I went to the State University of New York at Buffalo, and I got all A's in my art classes, but I don't remember being taught any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I don't think acrylic existed when I went to college.
Well, you know, I graduated in '76, and acrylic was just at its bust-out stage, because we had to learn how to take a canvas that was 100% cotton linen, with the tacks in our mouth, spit them out and hammer them into the wood. Rabbit skin glue, which I don't know if any of you have worked with, is ghastly. And then letting it dry and stretch, and then painting on it. Yeah, there was a lot of, but you know what? And I think though all the people that did art backgrounds, your backpack is so filled with crap you got to do. I don't think you even could remember a meal you ate, let alone, you know, if you're taking a 20 credit course load and three of the 20 are producing art, you're at that art hall 24/7. I mean, you're living there. A granola bar becomes a feast. And I think that's still common today. The techno age has pretty much expedited the teacher's philosophy of what they want, because it's there, it's written, you read it, you understand it. When I went to school, they gave you what was called a syllabus. And it was like, God bless you if you follow the syllabus. But if you did, it was all there. Here's how you get an A. Just read the syllabus and follow. You know, now I think there's maybe a little bit more, okay, click, 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 do your thing and let's check it out, you know. Well, thank you all for coming and enjoying this. I enjoyed it. I was a little ratty around the edges, but I'm going to take this one with me. We had people start drawing on it during the show, so I'm going to take it home and see if I could turn it into something. A lot of the yeah, because I see a lady dancing in it, and I see flowers and all of that. So, and this one I will continue and finish. I will send it to Mel, and she'll get it on NOMA so you could see where it ended up. Thank you.